The meeting is now called to order. Welcome to the regular town council meeting for the town of Cave Creek. It is Monday, October 21st, 2024. This year's almost over. We just completed an executive session and we've had a silent roll call. So we're ready for the Pledge of Allegiance. And I see Evelyn in the audience, since she has just retired as executive director. Evelyn, would you lead us in the pledge tonight? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Oh, we appear not to have a quorum, so we'll have to wait just a moment. Yeah,
Yeah, they're coming.
Thank you. While we're gathering here, I'd like to read this. Welcome to the Cave Creek Town Council meeting. I'm Mayor Bob Morris. Before we begin our meeting, I'd like to clarify how it is conducted and specifically the public comment portion of the meeting. Public comment is welcomed. This is one of many ways to inform your local government representatives and staff of issues that are important to you or to suggest improvements in the way we conduct the town's business. Our goal is to have a welcoming and friendly atmosphere between our community members and local government. Speakers are reminded to address their comments to the mayor and council and not to the audience. Arizona open meeting law governs these activities and greatly restricts how meetings are conducted and how council members communicate outside the public meeting. There are two opportunities tonight for the public to speak. First, at call to the public, immediately following these remarks, you'll have an opportunity to speak to council, staff, and all those participating and watching via Zoom. There can be no discussion by council of items raised, but we can direct staff to investigate. Arizona law requires that all discussed items be on a published and advertised agenda, so all parties have notice of potential action. Speakers must come to the podium and speak directly to the council. Speaking to the staff or other audience members is not permitted. Please speak clearly into the microphone. To begin, please state your name and address for the record. You will have 3 minutes to speak on the relevant subject. You will notice a set of 3 lights on the podium, right there. Green means you're within your 3 minutes. It turns yellow as your time is about to expire and red when your time is expired. At that point, please expeditiously conclude your thoughts. The second way to publicly communicate with us is during the public comment or public hearing section on an agenda item. Speaking is conducted the same way as the call to the public at the microphone and limited to 3 minutes. If you wish to speak during either of these opportunities, please take a form on the table near the town clerk. Are they over here? Or are they over by the door? Oh, they're okay. They are by the town clerk. We've changed that since I wrote this. Please hand it to our town clerk, Teresa, sitting to the left of the council dais. She will call your name when it is your time to participate. Thank you for attending our council meetings and taking the time to participate and express yourselves. Democracy in action. Public announcements. If you've driven down Cave Creek Road recently, you saw a great big billboard going up. That is not in Cave Creek. That is in a county island there, and we have no authority over that particular item. The neighbors fought it at the county planning and commissioner level. The town made known our opposition, both in public hearings and privately to county staff. The county scaled back the developer's proposals, but approved it over our objections. We'll continue to engage the jurisdictions beyond our borders, Maricopa County, Phoenix, and Scottsdale, to develop responsibly and in conformance with the rural character we're trying to preserve. But I think a lot of people think because location that we had something to do with it. And the only thing we had to do with it was trying to get it stopped or made better. And it was passed over our objections. Another issue on the same sort of plane is the car wash on the south side of Carefree Highway in the Phoenix Strip Mall west of Home Depot. The City of Phoenix project has generated a considerable number of noise complaints from residential neighbors across Carefree Highway who are actually in the town of Cave Creek. Myself, the town manager, Vice Mayor Royer, and Councilmember McGuire attended a public meeting where the owner promised changes to mitigate the noise. Were you there too, Dusty, at that meeting? You were, and Dusty was there too, excuse me. One neighbor had considerable research where the owner did not install the screening and noise control that was part of the project approval. The car wash was not installed with the mitigations promised by their representative at that neighborhood meeting. We contacted Phoenix Noise Enforcement, who tested the noise, and they found no Phoenix violations of their noise ordinance, which is the only one that they can enforce. I sent a letter to Phoenix Mayor Gallegos pointing out the omission of the noise abatement equipment and that was called for in the project approval, and we are awaiting a reply on that. So we are trying to work with communities outside, especially where they affect our environment up here in the north side of the town. So we're awaiting a reply on that. Does council have any announcements they'd like to make? Dusty?
Just want to let everybody know Cave Creek Dark Sky is having their 5th annual DS stargazing, dark sky stargazing party event at the Spur Cross Recreation Area parking lot this Saturday, October 26th, starting at 6:30. Please arrive by 5:45. And if you can, please RSVP at info@cavecreekdarksky.com. One word, cavecreekdarksky.com. One thing that's really kind of fascinating about it, they have a NASA astronomer who comes out and they actually show things. Last show, for the first time I saw anyways, was the rings of Saturn, and that was particularly impressive. So hopefully we'll have as good a show this coming Saturday as we did last time. It's a great event. I believe some of the places in town are offering specials, so you can eat before you go out there. Take advantage of it. It's a good time.
Speaking of great events, last week was the Taste of Cave Creek on both Wednesday and Thursday. And I was there, the mayor was there. I think several of us were there. And it was a very nice event as usual, highlighting many of the local restaurants here. And so I just wanted to say congrats to the organizers and to those of you in the audience who might have been there. It was a great time.
Okay, seeing no further, we're at call to the public.
Thomas McGuire.
I'm doing this in call to the public because it doesn't really fit in the way that we're doing the meeting. And I'm not, this has to do with the committee that got together in order to do the report tonight. We will discuss the merits of the report, whether or not I approve it or not, I can't commit to right now. But I do want to recognize the work that they did. We were anticipating having 2 reports, and what they've brought us is really amazing. So I want to give a Bitcoin to Bill Resor and Stacy. Don't spend it all in one place. And I should know, this is a real Bitcoin. If it were a virtual Bitcoin, it would be worth thousands of dollars. You're not getting that. This is a real Bitcoin. But thank you so much, and thanks to the whole committee. If I could give Bitcoins to the whole committee, I would, because it blew me out of the water the way you guys came together.
Okay, town manager report.
Thank you, Mayor. If you don't mind, I'd just like to go back with a couple items that you brought up to the audience earlier, and that is the billboard on Cave Creek Road. in addition to what the mayor mentioned earlier, I just want to just indicate that, again, the town is on record on a number of occasions of opposing this project and allowing the billboard. The other thing that's just very noteworthy is when you look around the valley and elsewhere in the state, you don't typically see billboards like this on what I would call a residential arterial. You typically see them along freeways and highly industrialized areas, or you see them on freeways, maybe closer to like the airport. It's just very unusual and very disappointing that the county planning commission as well as the board of supervisors allowed this. It's just disappointing. But that's all I have on that comment. And then the other thing is the All-Star Car Wash that the mayor mentioned earlier. We're very appreciative of Mr. Rourke and his neighbors that live in the neighborhood that are mostly impacted by the noise that's emanating from the car wash in Phoenix. As you could tell, it's a very sticky kind of situation because it's in Phoenix, but the impact is the residents that are actually across the street, across a very busy street, I might add, Carefree Highway. And they can hear over the noise from Carefree Highway about 1/8 of a mile away, almost a quarter for the one that's furthest away. So it's unfortunate, but we're trying to work through that process with the mayor's office, Mayor Gallego. And so that's the next step is for us to get with her office and see what, if any, remedies we can identify to resolve that problem. That's all I have, Mayor, for tonight.
Okay, thank you. On the consent agenda tonight, we have, number one is the council approval and acceptance of a dedication of a water line easement on parcel APN 216-13-014A. Number two is council approval and acceptance of a dedication of a new public utility easement on parcel APN 211-08-051. Number three is approval of the June 3rd, 2024 regular town council meeting minutes. And number four is cancellation of the November 12th, 2024 regular town council meeting. Does anyone on council wish to pull these and to discuss?
Ready for a motion?
I'm ready for a motion.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes 6-0. The next agenda item is council discussion acceptance of the recommendation of the Morningstar Trail Task Force Committee as contained in the executive summary, directing staff to bring forward the proposed non-motorized trail easement and make all efforts to acquire additional non-motorized trail easements as contained in the report. Additionally, the Morningstar Trail and Ad Hoc Task Force team term is hereby satisfied. And this will be presented by the Morningstar Ad Hoc Task Force Committee. Welcome, and Luke is going to say something.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. I would like to bring up and introduce the presenting members of the Morningstar Trail Ad Hoc Task Force, Chair Stacy Daniel and Vice Chair Bill Besor. Back on May 6th, the town council appointed a group of residents to specifically study and evaluate the proposed Morningstar Trail along with other trail alternatives. The committee convened for a total of 6 meetings over the course of the following months, culminating with the committee recommendation report being approved by that group at their September 25th and final meeting. At this time, it is staff's pleasure to pass the microphone to Stacy and Bill for their presentation. Stacy also, or Chair Daniel, also made you all some very nice lanyards that I'd like to pass out.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
There we go.
Bill, do you have yours on? You've got a
Yes.
dark shirt. Oh, okay.
Yes.
Just want to make sure.
I'm official.
Proceed.
Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the council, special welcome to Cynthia. Good to see new face there. On that, I want to thank you for the opportunity that you gave all of the members of the committee to work on this, and hope that you're pleased with what we've managed to do. What I'm going to do is present first our executive summary, which is a little long for a summary, but I think you'll get it. And then Stacy has a very thorough explanation of what it is we're proposing and some great visuals for you. So we're going to break it up into two halves here. It's good to remember how we got here, and we do that under our recitals. Around 2010, Mark Stapp approached the town of Cave Creek announcing his intent to develop a subdivision on parcels he owned at that time, including the 30-acre parcel at the end of Morningstar Road, located between the private 48th Street alignment and 52nd Old Stage Road. At that time, he stated intent to provide an easement for a public trail to extend between the western boundary at the private 48th Street alignment and the eastern boundary of 52nd Old Stage Road. The subdivision, as it was presented to the town, would have required at least two ingress-egress locations due to the number of lots. The topography there made that requirement very difficult to meet. In the meantime, an adjacent property owner objected to the location of the trail and responded by suing Stapp, the town of Cave Creek, and several other adjacent property owners. The case was ultimately settled in the Arizona Supreme Court in favor of the town and the other plaintiffs. During that extended period of litigation, Stapp turned his attention to the Cahava Springs development. The issue of the trail easement became dormant. Then in 2024, earlier this year, Mark Stapp approached the town seeking a lot split for his remaining 30-acre subject parcels and offered to provide the same trail easement gift. As per usual form, the easement gift was placed on the consent agenda before the council. Vigorous opposition to the trail from the neighborhood developed. The issue was tabled and the council decided to form the ad hoc Morningstar Trail Task Force to gain citizen input. The scope and the purpose of the task force was, and quoting from our directive, to study and evaluate the originally proposed Morningstar Trail extension along with other trail alternatives and to present findings and recommendations to the council for consideration. The way we began, we looked at this wonderful notebook that I want to congratulate staff on producing, which had for us the general plan, most of the ordinances, just pretty much all of the information that we needed to understand the trail system. And they did a terrific job, just pat on the back there. In the Cave Creek general plan, it states the town desires to expand its multi-purpose, non-vehicular circulation facilities, trails, to connect all parts of the town, as well as adjacent parks and national forest. Emphasis is given to riparian areas and other natural features on public land, as well as places where new trail segments could enhance non-motorized connectivity to different parts of town. These are the criteria that we used to evaluate the Morningstar Trail and our proposed possible alternatives. When we looked at the originally proposed Morningstar Trail extension location, we found that that trail does not provide additional connectivity. That very lack of connectivity is illustrated in the objections of the local residents. One primary concern was that trail users coming from the east on the existing Morningstar Trail would then be tempted to trespass on private property at the west end of the Mark Stapp parcels using the private 48th Street alignment. Further, the originally proposed Morningstar Trail extension location leads to private property where deed restrictions have been put in place to preempt extension further to the west. There are numerous other considerations that have been expressed by the local residents, and they're included in the supporting documents that you have in your packet. And they're under a heading called consensus. And I would suggest that all of you become aware of those. Okay. Conversely, however, the originally proposed Morningstar Trail extension gift of easement does provide some benefits. It comes at no direct cost to the town. It does not obligate the town to build a trail. It would provide a wildlife corridor on the parcel. Additionally, the combination of the proposed 10-foot trail easement along with the required additional 60 feet of easement that would be required for a dedicated public road effectively prohibits ever putting such a road in. It would impair the lot. Okay, the recommendation of the committee. Our recommendation is the town accept the gift of easement, but not build the trail in this location. At this time, the benefit of the trail is limited and the most probable users do not see the trail as a benefit. Our recommendation to accept the gift of easement is predicated on one absolute. The actual construction of a trail in this location would require a vote by the council incorporating direct citizen input. Because the council would have to vote for the funding to build such a trail, that's more or less a given. But we do feel important to say that the neighborhood would like to have a word if that were to be a possible thing. For generations, people have used a huge number of wildcat trails in this area. Slowly, over time, new houses were built, fences went up, and the trails were closed off. With a few more houses, a few more fences and gates, the desirability of a trail here might suddenly change. We can preserve that option without obligation for future possibilities. Based on these considerations, the ad hoc Morningstar Trail Task Force Committee began the process of looking at alternatives that appear to be better suited to accomplishing the goals put forth in the general plan. We were successful in locating two superior alternatives. I don't know if you guys can.
We've got it.
You've got it? Okay. Preferred alternate trail 1 northern route. The preferred alternate trail would connect to the Maricopa County Trail north and east of the private 48th Street alignment on Arizona state land. It would require an easement across private property that is currently vacant and then connect to the north end of 52nd Old Stage Road. There is already an easement there on 52nd, so that is a connection at that point. The trail provides several significant benefits in adherence with the general plan. It would provide a connection between Cave Creek's west side and the entire trail system to the east. Additionally, it would provide a connection from the east part of town here, if you will, to the nearly 4,000 acres of land currently zoned for open space and possibly to be preserved by the town. It would provide hikers lost on the Dragonfly Trail via spur cross conservation and off-ramp back to safety. I don't know that we really illustrate that very well, but Stacy will have more on that. Specifically, we recommend that the town look to obtain a trails easement on parcel number 1, plus additional easements as required across Arizona state land situated to the north end of 52nd Old Stage Road and moving west. This 15-acre parcel crosses the creek, is contiguous with Arizona state land, and then connects to the western side of Spur Cross land. Desert Foothills Land Trust 20-acre parcel is contiguous on this parcel's northern boundary. So that's number 1, behind door number 2. We have subordinate, and this is our, by subordinate, we mean intentionally subordinate. This is our second choice. Subordinate alternate trail number 2, the southern route. This proposed trail would connect existing non-dedicated trails on Arizona state land coming from the west side south of the Cahava Springs development, crossing a parcel owned by the town, then continuing east through private property. The final east side connection is undetermined at this time and require additional easements. So this does not make a full connection, but it gives us a start. While not providing an immediate connection west to east, this trail potentially opens up access to the Cave Creek Regional Park for east side residents. Part of the existing Wildcat Trail is in a beautiful canyon stopping west of Cave Creek Wash. This trail is exactly what emphasis is given to riparian areas and other natural features is about. Locally, they call that Paradise Valley, where this trail would be. Because this trail opens up access for the local neighborhood to the park, we feel that there may be local support to gain the additional easement to complete the trail to the east. There's something in it for them. Specifically, we recommend the town look to obtain a trail easement located south of North Cahava Ranch Road on parcel 8, plus additional easements as required to the Arizona state land. This 20-acre parcel has access from the western neighborhoods through land owned by the town, Arizona State Land Department, and Cave Creek Regional Park. And in conclusion, these trails provide several significant benefits in adherence with the general plan, providing a connection between Cave Creek's west side and the entire trail system to the east. Additionally, the preferred alternate trail number 1 would provide a connection from the east part of town to the 4,000 acres we would like to hopefully preserve somehow, but it's zoned for open space today with the possibility of future conservation by the town, and it would provide hikers lost on the Dragonfly Trail via spur cross conservation and off-ramp back to safety. And I think that last point is a very important consideration considering some of the history that we've had with people getting lost. That is as fast as you will ever hear an Okie talk.
Mr. Mayor and councilmen, councilwomen, thank you for appointing this Morningstar Trail Ad Hoc Task Force Committee and giving Cave Creek residents the opportunity to delve into this divisive matter. At the onset, two neighborhoods were in complete opposition to each other with regard to the location of the originally proposed Morningstar Trail extension. Each committee member brought varying points of view. We listened, we problem solved, we identified core issues. Oops, sorry, let me get closer. Regarding a variety of these primary and secondary topics. General trail talking points. Location. Trail locations should minimize impacts on adjacent landowners. Liability. Title 33 protects property owners from lawsuits. The town assumes liability. Land zone for open space. Find a trail that connects and gives access to the existing 4,000 acres of land zoned for open space. Overall safety. Trail connectivity is preferred when located away from driveways, noise, and motorized vehicles. Disadvantages to the originally proposed Morningstar Trail extension location. There is challenging topography within a confined area. Private property, private roads, and private easements exist. Deed restrictions in perpetuity are in place that prohibit connectivity and access. Numerous property owners will have the burden of more liability exposure due to the possibility of trespassers trying to get to their desired destination. Residents along the private 48th Street alignment and private North Cahava Ranch Road will be set up for conflict with knowing or unintentional trespassers. Finding an alternate trail to achieve the goal of connectivity and access. There are advantages to the preferred alternate trail number 1 and advantages to the subordinate alternate trail number 2. Concerns with motorized vehicular trespassers in land zoned for open space. All trails, current and future, are impacted by citizen unease regarding motorized vehicles illegally using the trails and land zoned for open space. Confrontations between property owners and trespassers are ongoing. Threats to property owners, repeated damage to lock gates, littering, speeding on private roads is a safety issue and adds to the cost of road maintenance. The ultimate goal is connectivity and access. In keeping with Cave Creek's general plan, our ultimate goal was to find an alternate trail route away from private property where the town is able to develop a dedicated trail with specific criteria to connect Cave Creek's neighborhoods west of the 44th Street alignment and the entire trail system to the east, and connect the east side of town to the nearly 4,000 acres of land currently zoned for open space with the possibility of future conservation. At our conclusion, we've come together as a group and have reached a consensus on these issues. Using this criteria, our committee has reached several important recommendations. A special thank you goes out to Development Services Director Luke Kautzman, Trails Coordinator Planner Bambi Muller, and Town Manager Grady Miller for helping this committee navigate the process, as well as to better understand the overview and history behind Cave Creek's dedicated non-vehicular trail network and how that framework fits into the general plan. The originally proposed Morningstar Trail extension. Although the originally proposed Morningstar Trail extension covers a good distance to east to west, it will not provide the access to the land zone for open space that the town and residents are wanting. Further progress west will end abruptly east of the private 48th Street alignment. Parcel 6 has obtained deed restrictions in perpetuity. Parcel 5 plans to do the same. The close proximity of this trail to the private 48th Street alignment will create temptation and encourage trail users to trespass in order to get to their desired location. This will set residents and trail users up for conflict with knowing or unintentional trespassers. Challenging topography aside, this easement is limited to a confined area on the steep eastern slope in order to avoid the existing driveway easement. The 50-foot drop and small footprint are at odds with keeping excavation to a minimum. There was overwhelming local opposition to the location of the originally proposed Morningstar Trail extension, which resulted in 128 signatures on a petition earlier this year. The easement is a gift, but the trail will be a costly expense for an unfulfilled outcome. Recommendation. Our committee is in unanimous agreement in recommending the town accept the gift of trail easement, but not build the trail on this location. At this time, the benefit of the trail is limited and the most probable users do not see the trail as a benefit. Our recommendation to accept the gift easement is predicated on the one absolute that Bill mentioned earlier. The actual construction of a trail in this location would require vote by town council incorporating direct citizen input. Preferred alternate trail number 1, the northern route, east to west. Parcel 1, a 15-acre property, is a vital link between the existing trail on Morningstar Road and land zone for open space with the possibility of future conservation. A large for sale sign is on this property. The QR code indicates it's currently off market. The location of parcel 1 is at the north end of 52nd Old Stage Road, with parcel number 2 to the south and Desert Foothills Land Trust property to the north. The town has a public right-of-way easement on the northern extension of 52nd Old Stage Road, running north-south between parcel number 1 and number 3. On parcel number 1, there is ample room to develop a trail moving west across the creek through Arizona state land and spur cross parcels, ultimately bringing the trail users up onto the mesa at the northeast corner of Cahaba Springs development. Wildcat trails exist and have been in use, traversing some of these parcels. Once on the mesa, trail users can access Maricopa Trail along with a network of other north-south trails in land zone for open space that also leads to the neighborhoods west of the 44th Street alignment. Desert Foothills 20-acre property adjoins to parcel number 1. If combined, a total of 35 acres has the possibility of becoming an integral addition of land conservation, which trail users would be able to enjoy for generations. A trail that connects to the existing Morningstar Trail will be a vital link in the town's trail system. This course of action would achieve the ultimate goal of offering a connecting east-west trail, give the public access to land zoned as open space for future conservation, provide access to Spur Cross Conservation Area and Cave Creek Regional Park, satisfy an overdue promise of a dedicated trail to the town's western neighborhoods, take pressure off the immediate neighborhood and reach a resolution residents can get behind and be excited about, showcase the beauty of our natural environment from varied terrain and unique perspectives along a canyon, close-up views of Elephant Mountain and Cave Creek Wash. This route will be more desirable to trail users than trails situated close to roads, driveways, noise, and motorized vehicles. Solve an ongoing problem of lost trail users coming from Dragonfly Trail via Spur Cross Conservation by an off-ramp back to safety. Our committee is in unanimous agreement that the town enter into negotiations with the express goal of the possibility of obtaining a trail easement on parcel number 1. Subordinate alternate trail number 2, southern route, west to east. There exists an alternate trail possibility on the 20-acre parcel number 8, which has wildcat trails. West of parcel number 8, the town could consider obtaining additional trail easements required on Arizona state land and perhaps Cahaba Springs development to connect it to the trail system. This trail stays well south of parcel 7, which is located at the west end of private North Cahaba Ranch Road and frequently used by motorized trespassers looking to get through to the east. Trail signage will help prevent trail users from trespassing in order to find a way toward town. A trail would be at the bottom of a beautiful canyon with varied terrain, which could easily be considered its own destination. The trail signage would help prevent trail users from trespassing in order to find a way toward town. A dedicated trail would unburden the property owner from liability exposure. While not providing an immediate west-east connection, this trail potentially opens up access to the Cave Creek Regional Park for East Side residents. This trail is exactly what emphasis is given to riparian areas and other natural features is about. Because this trail opens up access for local neighborhoods to the park, we feel that there may be local support to gain in additional easements to complete the trail across the creek to the east. Our committee is in unanimous agreement that the town enter into negotiations with the express goal of possibly obtaining a trail easement on parcel 8, but only after preferred trail number 1 can progress. In conclusion, these alternate trails would provide several significant benefits in adherence with the general plan. Preferred alternate trail number 1 would provide a connection between Cave Creek's west side and the entire trail system to the east. Additionally, preferred trail number 1 would provide a connection from the east part of town to the nearly 4,000 acres of land currently zoned for open space, with the possibility of future conservation by the town, and it would provide hikers lost on Dragonfly Trail via spur cross conservation and off-ramp back to safety. This Morningstar Trail Ad Hoc Task Force Committee strongly believes our recommendations are a win, not only for this town council, but for property owners highlighted in this report, the town's residents, and the general public. This course of action would be strategic development for Cave Creek's dedicated trail system and a significant advancement for land conservation. On behalf of this committee, thank you.
Very impressive presentation.
Thank you.
Congratulations to you and your committee. Other questions from council?
Yeah, I do have one. So I understand alternative 1. I think it's great, and I think you guys did a great job. I just don't understand the benefit of accepting an easement that can't be used. I mean, at some point, those, I believe the lot has already been split. Whoever builds on those are gonna have to put wildlife corridors in anyways, because that's our town code. So I don't understand the reasoning behind the accepting the gift.
You want me to take that?
Sure.
Okay, number 1 is the single most significant objection that we heard from the residents was what they really didn't want was a road. The wildlife corridor already exists, as you mentioned. The trail easement is adjacent to that in many places. The trail takes its own 10 feet. If it were to ever be a public roadway, the minimum right of way is 60 feet. So when we start taking out all of those slices, it makes it very difficult for somebody to find a way to put houses on what's left of that. It's a narrow parcel. So those are 3 of the benefits that come with it. Plus, it has no cost to the town. There's no obligation to ever build a trail in that. But if the residents change their mind, keep in mind, the best time to put in the trails was 50 years ago. Our second alternative is today. There used to be probably 20 different ways to get from the west to the east, and they've slowly begun closed off.
I get it.
And
I
so for those residents there, they may find this trail to be a very valuable thing that they may actually want in the future, but that's for a future council to decide.
And it can always be abandoned.
And by the way, the town can abandon the easement at some point if they choose.
Yeah, I just don't, I just trying to reconcile it. Since we already have in the code that you have to have wildlife corridors, I just don't, I don't see a need for it. I mean, that's just my personal opinion. But I do think trail alternative 1 is outstanding. And I think alternative 2, knowing the people who live down there where alternative 2 would connect, I think you'll have a hard time getting them to agree to anything. But maybe not. But I do think both of those are well worth pursuing. And number 1 just seems like a no-brainer to me. I mean, my gosh, I wish we would have had this discussion a year ago. That's all.
Question.
Cynthia?
Question for the task force and or for town staff. The strategy under alternative trail 1, the northern route of purchasing a property, either to hold or preserve or resell. Is that a strategy that the town has used in the past for any trail development?
No.
Can we elaborate on that just a touch? What we did find is that the town has some effectively residential lots in the town's possession that were acquired through problems when they were doing sewage treatment plants. And the town owns and still holds those. So clearly the town can, when they need to, buy property. The trail, according to the real estate people, actually adds value to the property. So in this case, if the town acquired it and put the trail in and then resold it, it should be able to recoup some of the cost from putting that in. So that was a consideration. But we actually saw this as a layer cake, where the first step is really to say, would you give us an easement here, please? We'll ask very nicely. And the easement, as Dusty pointed out, it could be in, if they chose to put it there, it could be in that top 12 feet, which is the wildlife corridor, which they can't do anything with that anyhow. Now, that's probably not the best view area of that, but it's not bad. The second layer of the layer cake would be to acquire an easement, to pay for it, which is possible for the town to do that. The town has a budget for trails and open space. So you kind of work your way through that process. For us to go any further would be way beyond the scope of what our committee was chartered to do, but we didn't want to bring you something that couldn't be accomplished. So
Thank you.
that was what our thinking was.
I'm glad that you referred to people who don't want trails near their property, but I think Bambi and Luke in particular can cite so many places where people said, I didn't want people near my property. And then they find out who they are. It's like, those are good people. The other alternative, I would think, is you've got uncontrolled use of the property. And I think that's what we're seeing now. You're getting more and more people who are coming from the West in particular. They can go out there with their motorized vehicles. They get over near the creek, they don't want to stop. And I think getting organized in this way gives some protection to the people in that area.
To that end, we had Marshall Stein come in and discuss that. And where we have a trail that becomes a town trail, then we have authority. If it's a wildcat trail on private property, then it's a civil matter, and the individual owning the property has to try and get the sheriff and charge somebody with trespassing. So a huge advantage here is that the town can control it. And one of our committee members who builds trails, who has actually put the impediments in to keep the motorized things off, is with us, and we had his good advice in this. So when a trail becomes a town trail, A, we have legal enforcement. B, the landowner loses the liability that's associated with the trail. And 3, we can put Ernie to work, making it very difficult for those motorized vehicles to get there in the first place. lining up work for you, buddy.
I think I already know the answer to this question, but for the record, I'm so grateful to this committee for coming up with unanimous decision and recommendation. But I need to know that the staff also approves of it and thinks it's practical and viable to move ahead with alternate one.
Mayor Morris, Vice Mayor Royer. Staff is, actually already has contacted the alternate trail route property owners, underlying property owners, based on this recommendation. And really the work that came through 6 meetings was really a phenomenal testament to the chair and vice chair to kind of bring everybody together, to lay everything out on the table and say, all right, this is everything we can agree on, and it's in your packet. It's several pages of things that they were able to build consensus and agree upon. These trail locations that they proposed, don't want to steal your thunder, but it's things that staff in the past has contacted those owners about and asked, would you like to dedicate a trail to Councilmember? I wanted to call you Vice Chair Driscoll from the Planning Commission, but to Councilmember Driscoll's point, when someone dedicates a trail, the recitals say, in the spirit of trails and recreational spirit of Cave Creek, I hereby dedicate this trail easement to the town. We haven't purchased one before. This is kind of uncharted territory for us as we're having these conversations with the landowners. But as far as to simply answer your question, yes, staff is supportive of these alternatives and really the recommendations that were arrived at unanimously by this group.
Very good. Thanks, Luke.
Other questions from council? Okay, there is public comment on this.
Patsy Murphy.
Hi, Mayor and council members. My name is Patsy Murphy, 41612 North 52nd Street. So I just wanted to say thank you to the committee. You guys were fantastic. I love the alternatives. I especially like number 1. And but I am against accepting the easement. I don't really understand the reason why we need to accept it. And I've listened to Mr. Besor, and I don't feel that, I don't feel like that's a straight answer. I don't know, like, why are we accepting the easement? What do we need it for? What's the benefit to the town? Besides the fact that we fought for it, or that the town fought for it.
Well, certainly the town did fight for it, and they have a perfect legal right to accept it. So that's a fact. But and again, I'm kind of repeating myself here, but there's the wildlife corridor, which is 12 feet at the edge of the property. Most of the actual easement for the trail is not in the wildlife corridor. It's adjacent to it.
Right,
then-
but we're talking about the easement. It already has a wildlife corridor, so why do we?
Well, it's bigger.
Oh,
And in this particular case, the ordinarily, we're supposed to set our fences back 12 feet, creating a 24-foot wide. Well, that
right.
fence is on the property line.
Uh-huh.
So this actually enhances that. I've never actually seen the deer observe close, to 12-foot alignment there myself, but nevertheless, making another 10 feet wider is good. And where they don't touch, there's not enough room between them to stick the road. So then the road has to go on the other side of it. And that easement would have to be a minimum of 60 feet. So
So it's potential for a road is really what it comes down
yes,
to.
the main benefit to the neighborhood is that we're trying to
And
make
that's
a
why
road.
I'm opposed to accepting the easement. So I just want to say, for example, my father was a builder, worked for
Mhm.
developers all his life. I've listened to many, many conversations of,
Mhm.
hey, how can we get access, Jack? How can we, and then I would listen, his boss would say, well, you need to do this. Hey, there's an easement over there. Let's go that way. So I know that creating an easement creates a liability for the state, Maricopa County, or the federal government to come in and do a eminent domain and take it. So that's why I'm opposed to the easement. Because I've seen it happen. It happened on Macon 101, turning Pima into the 101. That was eminent domain. I saw it happen to a friend of mine in Texas. They just come in, they claim eminent domain. The town doesn't do it, but the state can do it, the county can do it, and so can the federal government. So I feel that accepting an easement that we don't need, that's not really going to be any benefit to us, is a little bit of a threat. It won't be maybe in my lifetime, but maybe in my kids or my grandkids, because it can happen, and creating an easement makes it easier to do. But anyway, that's
Okay.
just,
One
Thank you
point,
very much.
that-
Time is up. Yeah.
okay, one thing that we
Thank you.
didn't say, this is called a prescriptive easement, which means that it prescribes exactly the only possible use for the easement, which is a non-motorized trail. So this particular easement is extremely specific. In the gift of the easement, I think it states 4 different times how prescribed it is. So,
unless somebody wants to come in and say they're taking eminent domain, which can happen.
well, that, we can't, uh, that guy over there would be the one to answer that question.
Right, irrespective, the condemning authority can come in and condemn. You have that risk right now.
Even if there's no easement?
Yeah, it's just real property.
Okay, thank you
I
very
have a
much.
question,
Thank you very
actually.
much.
Does and maybe this is too esoteric, Bill, Mr. Sims, does the easement? Never mind. I don't want to take us down that rabbit hole. Thank you.
Paul Deef.
Paul Diefender for 7645 East Highland. I'm glad one of the recommendations is to accept the easement, and is because you can always not do something with it, but if you don't accept it, you can never do something with it. And as proof as to how important trails are. There's a lot of wildcat trails, and people in this room have mentioned that we have enough trails. They're wildcat trails. They're good. Every time someone comes in that's not a creeker and buys that property and closes the trail down, never once have I ever heard of all the neighbors getting together and going, yay, they closed down a stupid dirt trail. They mourn when we lose trails. That's how important trails are. So I'm glad you're doing this. Whether or not trail goes in there right away, who knows? Who knows what people will do in the future to allow that to connect? But if you don't accept it, you're basically saying never. And that's the biggest reason to take it. I hope you can put in all those trails, because you can never have too many. And I live on the end of Highland. We have a trail that if you're around during that when we accepted that easement, it was called the Diefendorfer Loop, because Don Sorchek didn't like me and thought I was cahoots. It's not even on my property. It runs right next to my property. We haven't had problems with people using not motorized vehicles on it. When the trail first opened, one of the little neighborhood kids had his little motorized dirt bike on there. And I stopped and I said, hey man, you can't do your dirt bike on here. He says, but I'm not supposed to be on the road. I said, well, get on the road. And if you get pulled over by the marshal, just tell him that mean guy up the road told you can't ride on the trails. He's never been on the trail since. That's not an issue. The one biggest opponent to the Highland Trail since moved away, all of her fears that there are going to be thousands of people coming invading our town to hike the trails. Never. Neighborhoods love it. People use it all the time. So I hope you follow their recommendations and do it. Thank you.
Could I ask him a question? Is that kosher?
Yeah.
Okay. Paul, in the neighborhood where that's happening, are the people who live in there actually using that trail?
Yes.
That would be me. I'm on it every week, every day, every week. Thank you. Thank you.
Bruce Arlen.
Thank you. Hey, I have to applaud you guys and the whole committee. What a magnificent job, including the graphics. Well done. Very clear. I would urge you not to accept the easement for perhaps partially what Patty said. There's no real need for it. Paul Diefendorfer mentioned, hey, we could do something with this in the future. We don't want you to do something with this in the future. Don't accept it. It's okay. We have a wildlife corridor, which was, I think, the emphasis here for that area. But to leave room for a future what if, future council, et cetera, is kind of defeating the purpose of doing a wonderful job here, creating two alternatives that are viable, one for sure that's more preferred. And let's leave it at that. Councilman Rhodes expressed a similar idea, and I concur. Thank you.
Thank you.
No additional speakers.
Okay. So we're at the point where we are ready for a motion.
Mayor, I'll do it.
Good.
Move to accept the recommendations of the Morningstar Trail Task Force Committee as contained within the executive summary, directing staff to bring forward the proposed non-motorized trail easement and make all efforts to acquire additional non-motorized trail easements as contained in the report. Additionally, the Morningstar Trail Ad Hoc Task Force term is hereby satisfied.
Second.
Okay, this is the portion of the meeting where the council can discuss what they've heard and the questions, and it goes in order of the person that makes the motion and the second, and then the other council members afterwards. So Ernie, you had the motion?
Yeah, in my mind, the accepting the dedication is looking a gift horse in the mouth, and I think as long as it got good legs on it, we ought to take it.
There needs to be a balance here, and I think the committee really did a pretty good job of finding a balance between allowing us to do something in the future and also understanding that the neighbors don't want a trail there, at least now. And I think it's opened up a discussion. When I first got on council, we had someone who pulled me aside. They said, there's a process. And the process often results in bringing people together. And I think that has happened here. Nobody's getting exactly what they want. But I think it's leaving options open. But more importantly, I think, I want to give credit to Grady and to Bambi and to Luke for opening themselves up and helping to bring together a recognition of both what the neighbors want and what the community wants in terms of our identity. Thank you.
I had the opportunity to attend one of the task force meetings, and I was very impressed first with the passion of participation by all those on the task force and how important this issue has been to so many in Cave Creek. So I thank you for your service and for the incredible work to reach a full consensus on these issues. Likewise, I would support accepting a gift of easement. Almost every gift I think we should take and accept and keep those options open for the future. I think there's a lot of excitement about new trail opportunities and hope that we can move forward with them.
I oppose accepting the easement, but I love Trail Alternatives 1 and 2, and I think y'all did a magnificent job. So I know that if I made an amendment right now, it would get voted down 5-1. I get it. So I'm not going to make the amendment, but I do think that the easement is superfluous at this point.
Vice Mayor?
I just would like to commend all the people who helped us reach this agreement. I have been on council since 2018, and I don't think I've ever seen such collaboration that ended in a positive result like this, with different members feeling different ways. I'm so proud of all of you and all of us too, who helped create the committee, because it wasn't originally comprised of all citizens. It had former council members and committee members on it, and we knew that that wasn't the way to proceed. So I think this is a really wonderful example of us working together as a community, of our residents and our council, recognizing the strengths and weaknesses that we needed to include on this committee and move forward to a positive result. And I just am very grateful for it. Thank you.
Well, for my part, I am so impressed with this committee. I mean, it has exceeded beyond our wildest imagination to bring the kind of conflict and hard feelings that were present when this was first put in there. And I want to congratulate especially the leadership. Thank you very much. And your committee members, you've done just a magnificent job. And you've done something for the town, not just the council, but the whole town. This is the model for how to get through something that is contentious and there are differing opinions, and we had gone straight to a vote and hammered it through and then had all the hard feelings. But I think a lot of that has dissipated with the ability for the citizens to vent, get their opinions out there. We've listened to everybody over and over again on this issue for the last, since almost a year now. And this is really the model, I think, for handling contentious issues like that. And we've got staff's buy-in on it. There's some tweaks to it, but I just honor the fact that you've been able to come up with this kind of recommendation, starting with a mess, and you've made something out of it. So congratulations to the whole committee. With that, there's nothing financial here, so we'll go with the voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. I didn't, unless
No, I
someone.
did
want-
not oppose.
Okay.
I told you, if I would have made the amendment, it would have got shot down.
Mr. Mayor, may I ask
make
one
any sense.
small indulgence? Could we have the members of the committee that are here stand up and let us recognize?
Do they all have lanyards?
Wow. This is one of the best things that's happened in my time on council, seriously.
Ernie and I have been here for 20 years. And Ernie, we've never seen this before.
No, normally they're throwing tomatoes, rotten tomatoes at us.
Maybe we'll get back to that point.
Oh, you will. I won't.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Next on the agenda is a council discussion approval of resolution R 2024-14, authorizing the mayor to execute memoranda of understandings, MOU, with the Cave Creek Unified School District, CCUSD, and the Foothills Caring Corps.
Mayor Morris, before we proceed, I have a question for Mr. Sims.
Sure.
Mr. Sims, I would just like to clarify that in my position as an officer with the Foothills Caring Corps, as a volunteer, uncompensated position, there would be no conflict of interest in my participation in this discussion and vote.
And is the entity a nonprofit?
Yes, it is.
You have no conflict.
Thank you.
Give them a minute.
Welcome.
I can do introductions real quick here. First off, to help me tonight is the superintendent of the Cave Creek Unified School District, Mr. Bill Dolezal. And his assistant is Beth Judiski. She's the one that I think gets all this stuff if we go forward with this, right? She's pretty happy about it. If you'd like, Bill, if you want to make a couple of comments first, and then we'll get into the meat of the motion here.
Yeah, thank you. So good evening, Mayor Morris, town council members and distinguished guests, although I've cleared the room now at this point. in time.
You had that effect on the room. Bill.
Hopefully this may be the second best thing you've done in your life and no tomatoes. So, but I am Bill Doles. I am humbled and honored to serve our community as the superintendent of the Cave Creek Unified School District. I'm here tonight simply to say thank you for considering the town's generous commitment to supporting the ongoing education of our students and parents. Your decision to allocate funds from the opioid settlements will have a profound and lasting impact on our community. Mayor Morris and Mr. Ford, thank you for your leadership and vision. Your dedication to our youth and families has made this relation possible, and we are grateful. The opioid crisis has touched so many lives, and through this partnership, we'll be able to provide ongoing education and resources to help prevent further harm. Moving forward together, we are taking proactive steps to create a healthier, more informed community. To that end, we would like to announce that our next parent engagement forum, Understanding and Preventing Child and Teen Sex Trafficking, presented by FBI agent Emily Steele, is on November 4th at 6 p.m. in our Cactus Shadows Fine Arts Center. We invite and encourage our entire community, regardless of whether you go or have kids in our school district. We want everyone to come learn alongside of us. We believe our entire community is stronger when everyone is better informed about today's issues. Thank you again for your consideration. We look forward to continuing this work hand in hand with the town of Cave Creek to ensure a brighter and safer future for our students and community overall. And I'd just like to point out that Mrs. Udisky is actually our social worker. So yes, she would be in charge of looking at and managing the overall allocation of any funds. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members of council. We first took some action as a council back in April of 2023 when we accepted and signed on with the Arizona One Plan, which is grant funding from the Maricopa County and the Attorney General, Arizona Attorney General. We decided to accept those funds. It's very specific where we can spend those funds. And so it took us a little while to look at what our options were. And what we've done is we've decided to work with our partners, with the school district, and you'll get a second one down the road a little bit from Caring Corps with our nonprofits to help use the grant funding that we get from the Arizona One Plan to assist with their programs for the opioid issues. The initial funding came from all the folks that we had talked about originally in our initial resolution, which was 2023-07, which was from Teva, Allergen, CVS, Walgreens, Walmart, and then just recently you took another one that we accepted. So the funding goes directly from the state to the county, and the county to Arizona based, or to the Cave Creek based on our size. We currently have a little over $40,000 in that account. We've only spent about less than $3,000 so far to do a outreach for our first responders and their families on identifying opioid issues and use and stress. And so now we're looking to work with our partners to sign, first off, an MOU from the council, allowing us to sign MOUs with the school district and the Caring Corps. And then the second will be Appendix A is a specific MOU with the school district and will allow us to start transferring funds for the different programs. What I've asked both groups to do is just give me pretty much a syllabus of what you're planning to do and how that fits into the agreement that, or into the Arizona One Plan, so we can make sure that we're meeting the guidelines of that. And they've done that. And as they do that, then we will provide the funds and transfer it to the school district to make those programs go forward, whether that's for adults or whether for the community or for the kids. And so we've already done that. And so again, tonight I'm asking you to take two actions. First is for the general action of doing an MOU with those two groups, and second is to approve the specific MOU with the school district. I believe, Mr. Dolezal, you've already got approval from your board of directors to do this, or your board of
That is correct. At our last business meeting, our board, it ran through our legal processes and that, and it was unanimously approved by our governing board.
So with that, I can answer any questions that the council might have.
Questions for council?
Mr. Dolezal, I understand that you were appointed from within. Apparently, they liked what they had, and so congratulations on your ascendancy to being the superintendent. And we hope that you will do more with the council. I think the community needs to come together. I'm from the East, and the bonding between the community and the schools is so much greater than it is here. And I hope that we can have more of that bonding taking place in Cave Creek in Arizona.
Councilman McGuire, I could not agree with you more, being a Connecticutian before relocating. Yes.
Is that a word? Connecticutian? You do have a cowboy hat though, don't you? No, never
Mayor
mind.
Morris, I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't.
It's okay. I'm from New York and I can loan you one.
Other questions from council? Okay, there's public comment on this.
I have no one wishing to comment.
Okay, we're ready for a motion then?
I'll make a motion. Move to adopt resolution R 2024-14, a resolution of the mayor and council of the town of Cave Creek, authorizing the mayor to execute memoranda of understandings, MOU, with the Cave Creek Unified School District, CCUSD, and the Foothills Caring Corps.
Second.
Okay. Cynthia, you had the motion, your comment.
The school district and the Caring Corps have participated as good community partners on a number of issues. From a blended family with 5 graduates from Cactus Shadows High School, it's a pleasure to see the district continue to take the community welfare, families, children in the district, and the community as a whole as a big part of their operation. So I am happy to have you and the Caring Corps as partners to help distribute these funds in a positive way.
Opioids are a scourge on our young people. And the more we can affect how they think about it and how they react to it, the better off we're all going to be. So I think this is money very well spent.
Other comments?
What he said.
Wouldn't expect me to agree with you every day. Well, I certainly agree with it. It feels good to be able to support the schools. I know the school needs even more support in the future, and I hope we can, as Tom mentioned, form that kind of bond that sees everybody support the needs, especially the financial needs. With that, this is a financial, so we'll have a roll call vote.
Councilmember Bunch,
Yes.
Councilmember Driscoll,
Yes?
I'm gonna have to think, yes.
Councilmember Rhodes.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Royer,
Yes.
Mayor Morris.
Aye. Got your money. Thank you very much. And it's great to see you at our meeting.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council, thank you very much. Money well spent, as was stated.
Next on the agenda is council discussion approval of agreement between the town of Cave Creek and the Cave Creek Museum, which authorizes payment of the administrative costs to complete the local landmarks program for a 3-year total amount of up to $67,352, presented by the Development Services Director.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. Just briefly, for some context, local landmarks was first initiated by the town council in 2020 to recognize significant places in Cave Creek. Town has since recognized a total of 20 locations, which will culminate this year with the recognition of Desert Awareness Park, Spur Cross Ranch Conservation Area, Cave Creek Regional Park, Black Mountain Summit, and Cave Creek Rodeo Grounds. Those places will be recognized at presentation ceremonies scheduled through the new year. Last year, the town council by resolution R 2023-20 transferred the administration of the program to the Cave Creek Museum with the understanding that a contract would be necessary to supplement the museum's additional administrative costs resulting from taking over the landmarks program on the town's behalf. Town staff, in meeting with museum staff, directed the museum to put together a cost breakdown and outlay for a 3-year timeline by which the future remaining landmark locations would be identified and recognized. The proposed contract includes the cost as identified by the museum in the packet, and those begin on those begin on page 55 of 118 of your packet. Staff anticipated the year 1 cost identified by the museum as $28,670 and included that cost in this year's adopted budget. Years 2 and 3 will need to be planned for and budgeted in the future fiscal years. Should council elect to move forward with the contract, which totals $67,352 over the 3-year term. The administrative costs cover an additional 3 to 5 sites per year beginning in 2025. Staff in the museum have already begun to transfer the program information to the museum, which should be completed soon should town council consider approval of this contract this evening. And with that, I'll answer any questions you may have. Thank you, Mayor.
Questions? Dusty?
Does the cost estimate include escalation for inflation?
Mayor, members of council, Councilmember Rhodes, yes, it does. They built in a percentage increase based on hourly wage adjustments. I don't know if it was 3%, but they did build in an adjustment.
No, I just want to make sure that the escalation's built in.
Luke, so are we here to presume that the local landmarks program will be over in 3 years?
Vice Mayor Royer, yes, in our discussions with the museum, we've kind of identified maybe 10 to 15 more locations that would be suitable for this recognition, understanding that we didn't want to put a plaque on every property and down every dark alley, that there were probably a well of about 10 to 15 more locations that would deserve that prominent recognition. And that's something that the museum is going to be tasked with moving forward to identify those over a 3-year period and kind of build that program out, as we say.
One last question, and then the staff might have to answer it. Based on the cost breakdowns, I'm wondering if they're all allocated just to local landmark expenses, or if it's just general, like for website maintenance, marketing and PR, discovery maps. Is that all specifically for local landmarks, or is it just for general marketing purposes?
My understanding, that's costs solely dedicated to the administration of the local landmark program. So the updating the website as new locations are brought online, refreshing the website for different promotional things with our existing inventory of landmarks, and just kind of making sure that it's a prominent program.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions?
Yeah, I'm gonna be a bad guy here. Looking at administrative cost breakdown year one, archival services says $3,600. That's 10 hours standard per month, $30 per volunteer. The next one is per volunteer hour. Volunteers get paid?
Mayor, members of council, once again, to give you, maybe I didn't explain this well enough in my presentation. So the exhibit that shows the cost breakdowns,
Yeah.
that was something that we asked the museum to provide to us. So as far as the line item and details of that and how that number came to be, I can't really articulate on.
Yeah,
But Kathy Dwyer with Cave Creek Museum and Evelyn Johnson, who's worked intricately or very closely with this, is also here to answer.
yeah, I see them
maybe that-
sitting behind you there.
Maybe that question is a good segue.
I'm not accustomed to volunteer. If volunteers get paid, I got 19 and a half years sitting up here.
You want to stay, Ernie? We can.
Well, yeah, they could come up and answer.
You bringing me my check, Evelyn?
Good evening, Evelyn Johnson with Cave Creek Museum, retired, but still involved. So what this, it's an in-kind donation. We do not pay them, but it does take away from museum business getting done by that volunteer. So it's a trade-off as far as administratively.
Offset, okay.
That help?
Yeah, I suppose so. I'm wondering what I could be doing if I wasn't sitting here, but okay.
Ernie, you and I are both volunteers, but frankly, I think we're overpaid.
You'd be out hunting.
Friday. Other questions from council? There is public comment on this.
I have no one wishing to speak.
Okay, Tom McGuire.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to approve an agreement between the town of Cave Creek and the Cave Creek Museum authorizing payment of administrative costs to complete the local landmarks program for a 3-year total amount of up to $67,352.
Second,
A community that's lost its history has lost itself. So I think that's really very important. I also want to take the opportunity to, in absentia, if he is, Paul Alkema really started this program. Paul spoke to me, 5 or 6 years ago. He was at his computer just coming up with this. And it's one of the contributions that Paul made. Unfortunately, he's not here with us anymore, but I think it was an important contribution that Paul made to the community. I know he was proud of having started this program, and I want to thank him as well.
I think the museum is a custodian of our area history, and I support them, and I think this is appropriate in view of that, their contribution, and to continue this program and help the town's businesses and our tourism with identifying places where people who come to town can go. Other comments?
I think the museum is better suited to do this work than our staff is, and I thank them for taking this on.
Seeing no further comments, we are prepared for a vote. This is financial, so have a roll call.
Councilmember Driscoll,
Yes.
Councilmember McGuire.
Yes.
Councilmember Rhodes.
Aye.
Councilmember Bunch,
Having my question answered, aye.
Vice Mayor Royer,
Yes.
Mayor Morris.
Aye. Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Council discussion approval of a professional services agreement with NCS Engineers to provide design, permitting, and construction administration to upgrade the Zone 9 booster site to provide fire flows for an amount up to $94,376 presented by the Utilities Director.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor and Council. So this is actually a follow-up to a agreement that the town has in place with a developer up in Pressure Zone 9. And what I'm showing you right now is actually just a picture of the site. Pressure Zone 9 is actually, the booster station is tied to our Rockaway Reservoir as shown in the picture. The booster station itself is actually below grade. So that's what makes it challenging at this site. What you're seeing above grade is actually just the electrical equipment and the a little bit of the reservoir itself. Let's see. So the existing booster pump station, being below grade, was only designed to actually meet the domestic needs of the area. So they do have two 30-gallon-a-minute pumps up there, so they don't provide the fire protection necessary for the area, which the town has adopted with our new master plan, a 500-gallon-a-minute fire flow requirement. Continental Mountain Ranch is actually located within our Continental Mountain Estates is located within Pressure Zone 9, and the town entered into agreement, a revised agreement back in September of this past year, or in 2024, to actually work with that developer to cost share in this upgrade. The construction estimate is just $960,000, including design, to upgrade the site, and the developer is going to participate with a financial contribution of $350,000. That's partly based on the number of lots that are going to be serviced by this. So this is the pressure zone boundary, a map of the area. Continental Mountain Estates is highlighted in yellow, but the entire gray area is actually the lots that could be served by Pressure Zone 9. So we think it's a good agreement that got put in place that the developer is cost sharing with us. So the action tonight, now that we have the agreement in place, is actually to get an agreement put in place with NCS Engineers. NCS Engineers worked with the town to develop the basis of design and the cost estimate that got us to this point with the development agreement. Their estimate was $970,000, which include design work to complete the project upgrade. What you're seeing on the side there is a picture of the pump cans. Those pumps are located 20 feet below grade, or 12 feet below grade in a small enclosure. So they can't be upgraded. So we actually have some nuances to finish this off, but we want to start on and kick off the design. We actually have money in this year's capital program to help us fund starting this, and then the developer will participate his funds, which we can then carry forward to do the construction. We'll refund the rest of the project for construction next year in the capital improvement program. So this will make a significant upgrade for this pressure zone for the town, which currently can only provide domestic fire flow. So tonight we're asking council to authorize the town manager to execute this professional services agreement with NCS Engineers. We elected to move ahead with NCS Engineers since they did the basis of the design. We think they can most efficiently complete the design and get us to the point where we have a permitted design that we can then go to construction with. So we're trying to get a head start on this project at this point. The $95,000 being authorized, that does include some construction phase services. So that'll probably come later in the project. So we won't make all those expenditures this current fiscal year, but it does allow us to actually start the design this year. And with that, I can answer any questions.
Questions?
Did we get multiple bids on this?
With this one, we did not. For professional services, we elected to move forward with a sole source selection, direct select with the consultant.
Other questions? Okay, there's public comment on this.
I have no one wishing to speak.
No comment, and we're looking for a motion.
I'll do it. Mayor, I'll do it.
Go ahead.
Move to approve agreement between the town and Cave Creek. Oh, my gosh. Motion to approve a professional service agreement with NCS Engineers to provide design, permitting, and construction administration to upgrade the Zone 9 booster site to provide fire flows for an amount up to $94,376.
Second.
Okay, comments in.
Having sat in the seat that you're in May of 2020, when we had all these fires, now we've got a fire department now. Let's give them some water on the outlying areas of town and we can stop stuff moving toward us. I would like to see every part of the town, every pressure zone capable of having fire flow.
It's business that we need to complete, and I appreciate the fact that there are professionals out there who know how to do this.
Other comments? Tom?
Thanks again to staff.
The Zone 9 area has a lot of wildcat trails as well and a lot of brush. So having the fire flows there is a very important item.
The fire flow is necessary. I would like in the future to get multiple bids. I think it manages cost better. Just personal opinion.
Okay, this is financial, so we have a roll call vote.
Councilmember McGuire,
Yes.
Councilmember Rhodes,
Aye.
Councilmember Bunch,
Yes.
Councilmember Driscoll,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Royer,
Yes.
Mayor Morris.
Aye, motion passes 6-0. We're on to the next item. Council discussion approval of first quarter fiscal year 2025 budget transfers presented by the Finance Director. Welcome, Sherry.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So on the screen is the list of the transfers that we are requesting for the first quarter for fiscal year 25. On the list, several of these are things that have come to council and been approved. For instance, the construction for the Skybox project was higher than was anticipated during the budget time. This was approved by council. So doing the transfer from the general fund contingency to cover that $95,000 amount over the budget is included. The magistrate court, so this was an oversight during the budget process that the IGA with Carefree has an annual escalator for inflationary factors. There is a cap on that escalator of 4%. So for fiscal year 25, the CPI adjustment would have been higher, so it was capped at the 4%. So this is a transfer from contingency to cover that cost. With Cave Creek Water, the Bartlett Dam project, so that was something that was not included in the budget, and this is including that transfer for the fiscal year 25 portion of the town's participation from the general fund contingency. In addition, as part of the budget transfer to cover the budget capacity needs, the discussion at that council meeting was using general fund dollars to pay this first portion of the 120,000. So we would also transfer general fund monies for that. Then for public works, with road projects, these were projects that were just shifting from one project to another. The order of the projects was identified of which ones were higher importance and which ones could be postponed. And so in order to cover the additional cost for Tally Ho and Tandem, so a portion is coming from Morningstar and 54th Street, and a portion coming from the 53rd Street, Barbie to Olison. The improvements for Cave Creek Road, the northbound, so that was something that was not anticipated for fiscal year 25, but the opportunity arose for some cost savings and be able to make that in addition to what's happening already on Cave Creek Road. And so monies to cover that would be coming from the 53rd Street Barbie to Olison project and from the Rancho Manana Roads project. Are there any questions?
I just have one. We don't have a contingency in the utility companies?
No, we do not.
Okay.
It's on the list for the next budget process.
Any other questions? Okay, there is public comment on this.
I have no one wishing to speak.
Okay, we are looking for a motion then.
Motion to approve the first quarter fiscal year 2025 budget transfers.
Second.
Okay, this, any comments? That's,
We've already decided these things need to happen, so I think this is just the administrative catch-up.
yeah.
What he said again.
Okay, other comments?
If it gets done, we got to pay for it.
Yeah, seeing none, we'll have a.
Councilmember Rhodes,
Aye.
Councilmember Bunch,
Yes.
Councilmember Driscoll,
Yes.
Councilmember McGuire,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Royer,
Yes.
Mayor Morris.
Aye. Motion passes 6-0. We're on to item number 6. Council discussion and approval to authorize the town manager to approve agreements with Wildan Financial Services for the utility user fee study and an update to the utility rate study, Columbia Capital Management LLC for municipal advisor services, and Rounds Consulting Group Incorporated for an update to the long-range forecast and performance of economic analyses of the impacts of the Cave Creek Rodeo and Cave Creek Bike Loop, presented by the Finance Director.
Thank you again, Mayor and Council. So these projects are all very interrelated. There are 3 separate motions for the 3 different agreements, but we thought the conversation was best handled in conjunction with each other. So included in this is the utility user fee study. We had the non-utility user fee study that was presented to council on September 24th. And as we had discussed at that time, it was decided that we would handle the utilities aspect of this separately. Also, there's recommended an update to the utility rate study. The previous study was done in November of 22 was when that was approved. But there has been an integrated utilities master plan with several projects that were not known at the time of that study. So we feel like that needs to be addressed. Municipal advisor services. So the municipal advisor would help with identifying what's the best approach for paying for some of these large projects, capital projects, major maintenance projects. Is it best to debt finance? Is it best to do pay-as-you-go cash funding? So in addition to all of this, the update to the long-range forecast, that previous forecast was accepted by council in December of 21. And there's been things that have changed since then, and we'll go through some of that. And also there's been requests to look at economic analyses of impacts of the Cave Creek Rodeo and Bike Week. So since the last rate study, the financing plan and the forecast, one of the things that has changed is with COVID and inflation aspects and supply chain issues, prices have escalated quite a bit. And so the costs that were in the long-range financial forecast are significantly higher than what was anticipated back then. And as I mentioned, so the master plan for utilities did identify several capital projects, and there's concern about what the impacts will be on the general fund. There's already some subsidization to the utilities, utility funds from the general fund, and the fire and EMS costs all come from the general fund. For the update to the utility rate study and completion of the utility user fee study, the consultant would be Wildan Financial Services with subconsultant Pat Walker Consulting LLC. The original agreement for the user fees portion for utilities was $15,500. That was partially used for helping with the budget process for fiscal year 25 and starting that process with the utility user fees. What you have before you is an amendment to add $48,400. There's $4,700 remaining of the original agreement. So the remaining costs to complete the user fee study and to do the update to the utility rate study would be 53,100 from that original agreement, and the amendment amount that brings the agreement total to 63,900. For the municipal advisory services, the recommendation is Columbia Capital Management LLC. The fees that are paid to a municipal advisor are paid when there's a successful closing on debt financing. So basically, we're asking Jim Strickland and his team to work on helping with these long-range forecasts and financial plans in advance of actually having any debt financings identified. One of the things that we have asked of them is to look at the types of debt financing as well. There's been a lot of WIFA loans, and that may be the best option, but we don't want to exclude if there is another option of other debt financing that they find it would be more beneficial. We would want to know that. With the long-range financial forecast and the economic impact analyses, the consultant would be Rounds Consulting Group Incorporated, also a sub-consultant, Pat Walker Consulting. The long-range financial forecast, what the amount is that they provided is 40,500. The economic analyses of the Cave Creek Rodeo and Bike Week, they proposed 15,000. Brown's Consulting actually does a lot of economic analyses, a variety of things, and they did a very detailed one for Prescott Rodeo, so definitely have some rodeo experience in there. The total of those two amounts would be 55,500, and it does include discussion at the 2025 council retreat to go over what the aspects of economic outlook are incorporated into that long range forecast.
But it doesn't include the results of his study.
Yes, we are intending to have some preliminary information on that.
Okay.
So we are looking at a very short timeline in trying to accomplish these projects. So we are targeting to have that long-range financial forecast. We wouldn't be through all the process as far as adopting new fees for the user fees or for the rate study. That is a long process of the postings and things that have to happen in that. We would need them to begin these projects immediately. They have been given fair warning. But the consultants have done previous work for the town, have significant understanding, knowledge, history here with the town to be able to provide the best pricing and to be able to provide timely service in the short timeline that we're asking for. There are several items within the strategic plan that these three agreements would apply to. There's three of the goals, looking at business processes and efficiencies and identification of cost of services, cost recovery policies, collaborative partnerships to maximize resources, protecting and enhancing existing revenue sources, looking at new and diverse options. There are three action items that are part of this. One of the things that was in the strategic plan was 5-year financial projections, which this would cover. The utility rate study modeling would cover that. And then the cost allocation user fee studies would be covered as well. It also does have a tie-in with the strategic plan priority for economic vitality, with looking at these economic analyses of the rodeo and bike week. It fits in with this of looking at economic development pursuits, encourage recreation, tourism, and build demand for existing businesses and or generate additional revenues. That's what I have for you. Is there any questions?
Questions?
I like apples and apples and oranges, and it looks like this is apples and oranges when you've got utilities versus a couple of activities that bring people to town to spend lots of money. And it just seemed like, it looks to me like we're throwing away $15,000. Or do you think it could look to someone on the outside like we're throwing away $15,000 for that portion of it for the two social events?
Mayor. Mayor.
Yes,
Yeah. Councilmember Bunch, that's a interesting observation, and I can understand where that might come from. Because it is a lot of money. But since I've been manager, I've heard from residents on the outside questioning these activities and events. And granted, Bike Week, there's not a whole lot. It happens whether we want to manage it or help kind of support it or not. The rodeo is another one that we hear about with the investments we've made out there. I think it's a good investment to go ahead and determine the impacts and if there might be some potential where we can grow or have additional revenues come through. As we're starting to get into the potential for construction growth, winding down, in the near future, and not having construction TPT coming to the town, I think it's good to be looking from an economic development standpoint these opportunities, and if there might be other ways we can exploit these opportunities. So I see it as an investment, and yes, I would agree on the surface, not knowing what I've heard behind the scenes on this, I probably would not have supported it, but I do think it would be good for us to do this. And it also appears to be supported by the council's 2023 strategic plan, not specifically calling us out to do this, but it ties into economic development and tourism.
Yeah.
And I think those activities support that.
But I guess the question stems from I just did some rough numbers here in the 8 years that we've had the rodeo, that the group that has it now, including the 500,000 that we're putting toward the skybox that blew down and that didn't get replaced for 2 years, around $800,000, including the $3 per seat charge, plus all of the corrals and the new gates that we put in, will be paid by the. Would the scope of that not be better used to look for alternate uses of the rodeo grounds in order to bring the revenues that you're talking about based on the lost revenue from the sales tax, DPT, on our construction sales tax?
So I do have a comment piggybacking on yours. I think to be able to optimize the rodeo grounds, we have to know what we've got right now.
Mhm.
Once we know what we've got right now, and that's what I see as $15,500, then we might be able to tweak some things with the rodeo to bring in more money. We might be able to tweak some things with Bike Week to bring in more money, but you have to know where you start from before you can start looking at alternatives.
Well, currently, the Bike Week security and traffic and all that stuff is paid for by the sponsor, as is we shouldn't be discussing. We should be asking questions at this point in this conversation.
So that was the question that came up, and this is me talking to Grady way back when and bringing it up to the council a couple times. I've heard from several small businessmen that Bike Week negatively impacts their resources. So let's find out the truth. Does it negatively impact their resources, their funding? Let's find out what the negative pluses and minuses are.
Yeah, when those businesses have never taken a DECA course in high school, of course they don't know anything about distributive education and getting people into their business when you've got thousands of people coming through town. So, okay.
Can I move on? I'd like to see the economic impact of Taste of Cape Creek. I was there, we were there, and it wasn't as well attended as in years past, and I'm wondering why. Our town was not involved. We were in previous years. And so how we identified these two social events kind of bothers me, because I think the Taste is yet another example of a wonderful event that brings in a lot of people, but it has not reached its pinnacle. And it could if we were more involved, I believe.
We're still in the question area here.
I guess my question is why wasn't there some kind of communication among us on which social events we wanted to have surveyed?
I was looking at these purely as economic events, and you can argue the same thing with the Taste of Cave Creek. What I was looking at, or what I'm trying to find out, is having worked in other cities that you have like amusement parks as an example, and granted, this is not a 360-day a year kind of events, but you factor in how much is a spend per person, per guest that comes into like an amusement park, and how much are they spending in the community? How much are they spending on meals and bed tax and all that kind of stuff? So what this is trying to do is identify potentially revenues, not just at the site, but do we see a blip at our restaurants? And do we see people spending money on the retail aspect during these visits when these events are going on? So you could make a point, and at the time, these have been, and you probably make a very strong point that this has been going on just as long as like the rodeo, and Taste of Cave Creek goes back probably 20 years or more, maybe.
I don't know if it's that long.
But so that's what we're ultimately trying to
Mhm.
find out. And if the council wishes to expand the scope to include that, we can include that as well.
Maybe next time.
Other questions? I have a number. I'm not, we need all this information, but the cost seems unreasonable. In order to bring in $15,000 to the town, we have to spend, somebody has to spend $500,000 in town to bring in 15 at 3% tax. So that's 100,000 beers, to put it down into alcoholic terms. And
I'll drink it.
and if I had access to the sales tax records before, the week after, take a difference between the two and estimate it, I don't think it'd be any less useful than here. So I just think the cost is unreasonable for $15,000 when they're going to get the information from us to start with, aren't they? For the sales taxes, how are they going to estimate it? They're going to do just that. The second thing is $63,000 for the utility studies. Is that when we did the first utility study, they made a model that we were supposed to be able to plug the numbers in and come out with utility numbers. And we weren't anywhere near $63,000 to create the models, which supposedly we have. So what are they doing? Are they creating a new model, or is this the existing model that we've already paid for?
This is doing updates based off of an assumption that the customer makeup has not changed much and the water usage levels have not changed much, but updating for all the various financial factors, including the information from the master plan. But this is not just for the rate study. It's also to do the user fee study as well.
$63,000 is unreasonable. I just cannot see how putting different numbers in an existing model comes up to $63,000 with the user fee study. I just can't see it. And I've been through 3 or 4 of these things and
put that
been through
slide
the
back up?
details of these models.
So we're going to just go through a breakdown of it, because some of it is previous expenses that they did during this last fiscal year's budget process. And then it's also 2 different studies plus the economic impact.
Well, again, I'm not against getting the information. I just don't think you're getting a very good deal. If Willdan cannot do this cheaper, can we do it ourselves? Can we update the numbers in the model and push the button? Because that's what it is. That's what it should be. Now, the user fee study is a little different, because there you've got to go to the number of hours that someone puts in to change out a meter and things like that. But the actual rate study should be a cookbook. We bought a cookbook.
So there's a lot more to this than just updating a few numbers in the model, because it's going to look at where would we be at as far as like rate increases and trying to balance out with trying to wean off subsidies from the general fund, looking at what we finance and what we don't finance and modeling that information. So it would be going through trying to identify what works best and all that. So this is why these three projects are interrelated, because all these consultants will actually be working together to help accomplish all of these.
And if I may, Mayor, do you want to just go through the breakdown again? Because it
Mhm.
wasn't clear until you brought this slide back up. And again, part of it is they didn't get fully paid under the original agreement for the user fee study for utilities, correct?
Correct. So they started the utility user fee study, and then that contract that was approved by the previous town manager, they started utilizing some of that to help deal with the budget process and some of the projections and information in the budget. And so they used up all except for 4,700 and did not complete the user fee study. So in order to be able to complete the user fee study, and to be able to do the update to the utility rate study, the amendment would be 48,400 for both of them.
So it'd be closer to $52,000 for the two of them, correct? Because
Right, so the
11,000 was
remaining-
used last fiscal year
Mhm.
for the budget process.
So the remaining cost to be spent with this amendment, the 4,700 plus the 48,400 is 53,100.
So we spent money, but didn't spend enough money. We just spent part of it.
Because we had contract in place for them already. And because of the situation, not having a finance director and trying to get through that budget process, we had to, for them to help us with the utility aspects of the budget, they were helping us behind the scenes to get to where
This is during the budget.
during the budget process.
Mhm.
And so as a result, you're right, the original agreement for the user fee, I believe, was 15,500, but approximately 11,000 was tapped to get us through the budget process. So, this is how we had to get through to be able to get the budget done on time. So if you were to take that and you subtract it from the 63, it's like 52 for the utility rate study and the utility user fee study. Because the other part was outside of their scope.
Well, I don't see how this, you're gonna have to do the user utility rate study before you give the numbers to Rounds, because he's not gonna do the utilities. He's gonna take the numbers from the utilities and he's gonna put it in his model and he's gonna give you an answer how you ought to finance it. Should you go out and bond for the capital projects? What do you have to raise rates for? What does the town look like? I don't see an interconnection between the Wildan work and the Rounds work, other than one has to be in front of the other.
Yes.
They aren't interrelated. There's no
They're
back
not.
and forth
They're-
with numbers.
But there's coordination between the studies and the different entities that are helping us with this. So you're right, in terms of work.
I don't understand that, having done both.
Well, Rounds
through
isn't
this
doing what
before.
you just mentioned as far as the financing. He's going to take the numbers, but Strickland, who is our municipal advisor, is going to be the one that determines what the financing cost will be. And then feed that to Rounds in his analysis. Does that make sense?
Well,
As far as the subsidies from the general
you're
fund
gonna
that
have
go
two
to,
options coming. Well, okay, yeah, I guess you're right. You've got
Right.
two options coming out. You can do it with rates, or you can borrow money and just pay the carrying cost
right.
for the bonds. Yeah.
And we've heard it when we were going through the budget process, the council made it very clear that they didn't think going forward that we needed to do pay as you go. All this major maintenance and capital improvements, a lot of it could be financed and then rolled into the rates. And since the benefit is going to be over the next, say, 20 years or so, why not have it built into the rate base?
But that's not an issue.
No, I
The
understand.
issue is not the fact we need money or we need a decision on how we're going to finance. The issue is the costs here seem unreasonable.
Okay.
And again, we're back to a single company. I love Wildan. I love Rounds. They've done great work for us. Pat Walker's done great work for us. We refinance stuff through the financial group. They've done great work for us. But we're really paying for that. Are we getting too comfortable with having the same people do things? And are we getting the best prices for these things? Go ahead.
I would say in the economic environment and where we're at, we are getting good pricing. And if we want to have the information in time for the council retreat, this would be the way to go. If we're starting out with somebody new or trying to take this on in-house, we just don't have the capacity to be able to do that.
And if I may too, I think the other concern is, and you bring up a really good point, maybe after we get this completed, we would go out and seek proposals in the future for this type of work. But they do have familiarity. And so just much like auditors are very familiar with our finances, trying to change audit firms every year is going to create a little bit of a learning curve. And so I think right now, if you had to go put this out, I think that the prospective firms would go ahead and price it accordingly, because they're going to have to spend a lot more time trying to get up to speed. So that, I mean, I understand exactly. I'm all about saving money whenever we can. And I think, Mayor, you bring up some really good points, but part of what you're seeing is, you know, again, it's 11,000 from last year, should not have had to be done, but it was. And then I do think, and I'm pretty convinced, if we were to put this out for proposal, we would have seen higher prices come through.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I don't know anybody who can do the job that Rounds can do in municipal government. Maybe they exist out there, but I've not seen it. Wildan's a different story, and I love Will. They've done good work for us. But
So in my
I guess I've been
past-
around too long to hear these pitches about how we're going to get a model. We just put the numbers in and out comes out the other end.
Now, it's true, and we heard that when we went through the user fee study, that we were going to have a spreadsheet and we can change the variable costs, you know, like the labor costs and overhead costs, to come up with what the fees should be.
This is what, October? And when does the budget start? We have to make the decisions before we start budgeting. So when is the information needed?
We're trying to get this completed preliminarily for the budget process, but more importantly, as Sherry was mentioning, the council retreat is February 6th. And so the preliminary numbers that Rounds provides, without maybe having the backup of a report printed, is February 6th, and he believes he can get what he needs done by that time. Of course, it's going to be very close coordination between all the different parties to work with each other. But you have somebody like a Pat Walker who's crossing over from Wildan and into Rounds. So you've got that conduit going on.
Okay. Well, it's our fiduciary responsibility to have information to make the right decision. So that's not an issue. The issue is, are we getting our best value? Maybe we don't have time to do it this year, but I'd like to see staff do some of these studies in-house, the easy ones like the bike week and the rodeo. I could do that myself if I had the data.
Maybe we don't want to do those two.
Maybe we don't. Let's take these one at a time. Okay, well, where are we?
I have
Public comment?
I have public comment.
All right.
Joe Friedman.
Council, Vice Mayor, town, everybody. Anyway, I'm coming to you as a citizen of the town tonight, and I just want to make a few comments. I do believe we need the study. I do believe the money part of it probably needs to be discussed too, but it needs to be worked out. I just want to make a comment to you, Vice Mayor. I don't know if you remember when the Taste of Cave Creek was over at the Frog. It was a single buffet line with chafing dishes where everybody's food was right next to each other. It was $20. It has grown quite a bit. I get that it's down a little bit, but who knows? I just want to make that comment because I do remember when it was really teeny tiny and only the town people came. Also, as far as the bike week, yeah, a lot of people, to your comment, Councilman Rhodes, there's a lot of people I spoke to. I went to the bike week this year and I spoke to a lot of people. they're coming back. A lot of people have never been here before and they're like, wow, this is a great town. I'm going to come here, you know, when it's an off week and I'm going to check it out and spend some money and go to these shops. So there's money to be made after the fact because people couldn't get to those shops. Also, I want to put a bug in your ear about what's going on this weekend. I don't know if any of you noticed it. I meant to talk about it earlier. They had Biketoberfest this weekend down there. I don't know if you guys noticed it. They've had it in the past. It's never been really a big thing. The motorcycles on both sides of the street went from Sans Souci to Dairy Queen on Saturday and the other side. It was big. It was real big. There was zero traffic control. And this needs to be looked at and putting a bug in your ear because next year it's going to be bigger. Mark knows what he's doing. I give Mark credit. We do need that money too. There was a lot of money coming in, but I saw people cruising across the street at night and almost getting hit by cars, etc. We need traffic control. We need to have a meeting with Mark, the town, you guys. But I think this is a big event when you're talking the motorcycles going from Sans Souci to Dairy Queen on both sides of the street on Saturday. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
David Phelps.
David Phelps, Cape Creek resident. So we bundle 3 issues together and I've only got 3 minutes. To Ernie's point, had the town, after the first year of Bike Week, done the analysis they should have done, we might have not had the second year of Bike Week. Because we don't know today what's happened over the last 20 or whatever years. Bike Week has commenced, but we've made a trade. Multiple residents have expressed over the decades about their unease, about their not liking Bike Week. And we've got to the point where we threw our hands up and said, well, they're going to come here anyway. If we had a baseline of, folks, we need that revenue, or folks, we don't need that revenue, what can we do different? We don't know what it is. I think with the mayor's comments, we could do this pretty easily. We do have a relationship with the state on the sales tax information. I remember you guys having a distinct conversation and agreements with the state on that. And I really think we could ballpark it in as to what those weekends of traffic impact on those of us who want to enjoy the nicest weather of the year, not just when it's 110 here. So I disagree with you, Ernie. I really think we need to do the study. Also, the big money that comes from that rodeo doesn't come back to the town. It goes to charities. And so we need to see what that impact is too. And so I think following the money is a responsible thing to do. To the mayor's point, I remember you guys approving Wildan rate increases that was supposed to be good for 5 years. Does anybody else remember that? It was supposed to be, had an escalator in it, that when you guys did that rate study, the model was supposed to be good. And I believe I was sitting here listening to somebody say, yeah, we just plug in your new numbers and you have your new rate. And it was supposed to be an easy thing to fix, because the first time, I believe it was Wildan did the rate study, it was a mess and we rejected it. So they essentially did it twice. Am I remembering this the way it happened, Mayor?
Well, I just want to make a comment. Wildan wasn't a mess. It was a town accounting system that was the mess.
Right, but the numbers that they created for our rate increase weren't going to work. And they had to go back and recalculate their formula, if I remember right.
They've always done outstanding work. The problem's always been the town numbers, which has been straightened out since those days.
Okay, and to Jim Rounds, I believe Jim Rounds is worthy of hiring and doing this work. I think he's the qualified party that gave us the strength to get our fire department, and we need his vision on what the future is going to hold, because we don't want to get into, with the fire department being, I believe, our largest expenditure very soon. And it's built-in escalators. We need to know where we're headed with what we have. Thank you for your patience with me.
No additional speakers.
I do have a question. I don't see how we can separate these. They're all kind of, the problem as I see it, and maybe I'm paraphrasing here. They don't have the expertise in-house because they don't have the people. We need the information, and if we're gonna make decisions for the budget, the information needs to be provided. In future years, we can fix this. In present year, I don't think we can. Just a thought. Is that kind of a succinct way of putting it?
We need so you're recommending that we do this as one motion?
Do it as a lump. Motion to authorize the town manager to approve all three assignments listed below. A, motion to authorize the town manager to approve an agreement with Wildan Financial Services Utility User Fee Study and an update the utility rate study. Motion to authorize the town manager to approve an agreement with Columbia Capital Management LLC for municipal advisor services. Motion to authorize the town manager to approve an amendment with Rounds Consulting Group Incorporated for an update for the long-range forecast and performance of economic analysis of the impacts of the Cave Creek Rodeo and Cave Creek Bike Week.
So why don't you just so you're in favor of option one? So it
Yes.
should be one or the other, not both. So which?
Okay, so option one, move to authorize the town manager to approve all three agreements below. The Wildan Financial Services, Columbia Capital Management LLC, and Rounds Consulting Group Incorporated.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Discussion.
I would love to see things get cheaper. The issue that we've got is time. We have people available now. We can get them now, or we aren't going to have this for the next budget cycle. It'll be the budget cycle after that. And I think that is not a good thing for our taxpayers. Just personal opinion.
I think that we were very, very much impacted by the budget last year. It was in terrible shape. We didn't have the right people, and we had to pay for that. And that's why we lost $11,000 right off the top of the food chain, so to speak, of Wildan. So, instead, what we need to be doing is thanking Pat for helping us get through that very difficult period. So yeah, there's really no option to getting around this right now. And I think that we just need to move forward.
Other comments?
Mayor, you want a baseline for Bike Week and rodeo days. We're not privy to sales tax revenue numbers from individual. The only two people in this room that can get those numbers are sitting right there and right there. Are they going to have those numbers to work with?
We are not allowed to provide them that information, and it's not received on a weekly or daily basis. The shortest time period is monthly.
Yeah, I got a problem with spending $15,000 in a vacuum.
Okay, Cynthia, you had your hand up.
Well, just so that I'm reading this correctly, between the three proposals together, it would be just shy of 120,000 for the suggested studies.
I believe that's about right. Yes.
And then for the Columbia Capital Management, what anticipated cost with debt financing would be anticipated?
It would depend upon the size of the issue.
My comment, once again, it's not the fact that we don't need that. We need this information and we need it in a timely manner. I'm going to challenge staff to negotiate these prices and to make sure that you can convince us. I'm not convinced that we've gotten the best price we can get on these. If you take the per hour fees that are in the back pages back here, which is $225 an hour, and you go into $120,000 or whatever it is, that's a lot of man hour. I don't think we're going to get the man hours that's talking about that would calculate out to. So I don't think we're getting value here. But I agree with Dusty. We need the information to execute our fiduciary responsibilities, and the option to not have the numbers is worse than the option to have numbers that I don't think are a good value. Let's just put it that way. So, I guess that's the last
You
comment.
want me to amend to ask to go ahead and approve this as maximum and ask that they try to renegotiate the rates lower? Because we can make a friendly amendment to the motion.
Your mic's not on.
Let's ask staff's opinion of what that entails. Is that reasonable?
These are the maximum. I mean, this is not a fixed price contract, correct?
Right.
So it's the hourly rates up to not to exceed this amount, correct?
Correct.
So this is the highest possible that it should be costing us.
So my challenge to you is to watch those hours and
Right.
get this done as cheaply as possible, because it seems unreasonable to me.
We will,
I
we
would
will,
also like an answer from staff is why we're not using that model and just plugging numbers in the way it was advertised.
I wasn't here to know exactly what they had told you, but I'm guessing what they were saying is as different things increase, pay raises, cost of maintenance increases, all of those things. But we're talking about looking at things more than just that with the master plan and incorporating those projects and identifying which ones are going to be financed, which ones are going to be paid with cash, all of that. So it's more than just dropping in some updated numbers. It's altering what's in there.
It takes some analysis. I agree.
also, we're
We'll look
looking
at
at, as
sources.
far as conservation goes, I mean, we're probably going to be creating another tier that we didn't have before. Granted, that's not a lot of effort, but it does take some analysis to figure out, impacts.
I guess my final comment would be how on earth they're ever going to get accurate numbers on Cave Creek Bike Week. I mean, it's different from the rodeo. The rodeo has ticket sales. There's no tangibles to Bike Week. So good luck getting us some real numbers on that.
I was just mentioning to Bill that it's not just necessarily looking at the sales tax that's generated. That is very helpful. But someone like Rounds is an economist, and he uses modeling that's basically statistically driven. And so it takes in a lot of different factors to be able to generate these models. And he has this kind of experience. I think it's like genius level to me, because these types of people that do these economic forecasts are just, the work that they do is just amazingly technical and something I would never be capable of doing. So, and I think it's more than just trying to figure out sales tax. Yeah, sales tax is very important. I know the rodeo was mentioned, that rodeo generates this, a lot of money, and it ends up going to charity. But what it doesn't tell you is how much that you can anticipate the spillover, the economic spillover of these people and what they spend elsewhere. And it's not just all sales tax. It's also retail sales and lodging and things like that, so that you can put a dollar value on. So I hear where the council's coming from, and these are not cheap, to do. But I think it would be good because we'd form a baseline as to what they generate. And if the council wanted to include the Taste of Cave Creek, we could add that as well.
Well, as part of, if we do approve this, I'd like to see a breakdown from finance on what this actually costs us.
Okay.
A look back of how well we could manage this to keep these prices below this $120,000. Okay, we have a motion on the table, second, and the comments are in, so let's have yeah.
I want to make sure we understand what you're saying. There's three different methods for billing this. The Rounds Consulting is hourly, not to exceed. The capital management, that's just a percentage of the you'll get that bill when they do the financing, and you can discuss it.
And to that point, the municipal advisor services will be rolled into the debt service.
Yes, so you'll pay that at the time. You can negotiate that. The Wildan says it's a lump sum, so it's not hourly. So, I mean, do you want staff to try to negotiate that down is my question.
We could do that.
It's on page 85 of 118.
I believe that was the intent of the mayor. Yes, try to negotiate that piece
Okay.
down,
But
and limit the other hours to what the minimum that we.
yes, sir.
need.
but right now, I think staff has been told you're approving it and do your best to negotiate that down and and accept and reduce the hours.
And,
Yes.
and bring back a report on what the actual cost was to
Okay.
cancel for
Okay.
this. Okay, so the motion, let's have the roll call then. To approve
Council-
option one.
Councilmember Rhodes,
Aye.
Councilmember Bunch,
No.
Councilmember Driscoll,
Yes.
Councilmember McGuire,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Royer,
Yes.
Mayor Morris.
Aye. Motion carries 5-1. We're on to the staff report presentation of the quarterly financial report.
Okay. So I have several areas that I wanted to cover. This is not just a look at what the financial status is, but things that are going on in the finance department. Looking at the staffing and projects we've been working on, performance measures, et cetera. So with the finance staffing, so I started June 17th. The former finance director stayed on until June 27th, basically in that accountant position. We had our new accountant just start today. So we are finally at that fully staffed part. And in the budget process, council approved a management analyst position that is going to be shared between the town manager's office and finance. And so that job description is in process. And so that'll be some additional support for both departments. So one of the things that I was tasked with when I very first started was to evaluate what the staffing needs were and what are some ways that we can create some efficiencies to be able to accommodate additional duties. So what we are looking at doing is taking the utility billing positions, reclassifying them as an accounting specialist and lead accounting specialist, and to have them take on the accounts payable and payroll duties with some rotation there. And also to look at a transition of business licenses and short-term rental licenses from the town clerk's office. Some of the routine accounting duties that are currently being performed by the accounting manager would go to the accountant position, and the accounting manager would perform some of those higher level accounting duties, some budget functions, and assisting with special projects, which when we get to that, you'll see the list is rather long. So we've gone through and revised job descriptions to move forward in this direction. But one of the things that we mentioned in the last council meeting was that to be able to take on some of this, to create the staff capacity, we felt that changing banking services and being able to have better efficiencies in that would really be able to help create the capacity of staff to take on this work. So I've listed here, there's several of the fiscal sustainability goals in the strategic plan that this relates to, and a couple of the action items there as well. We've been looking at process and policy changes, and I'm not going to go through every single one of these. I don't want to keep you here all night, but I did want to highlight a few of them. On the left-hand side is some of the various changes that we have made. On the right-hand side is relates to the strategic plan and the goals and the action items that those support. One of the things, so when I first started, we had already in the budget identified having some CASEL training done. That's apparently been done on a somewhat regular basis over the years. And so there were those of us in the finance department who had never actually gone through a CASEL training before and learned a lot about what CASEL's capabilities are. One of the things that we've already started implementing, so we now have an electronic workflow process for approving vendors in the system. So being able to have that second set of eyes to make sure that what is being set up is correct and appropriate. We also have done some cross-training between the utility billing staff and the administrative assistant. So there are times when the administrative assistant over on the admin side, when she is out, and that basically puts burden on Teresa and Carla to cover the counter and the phones when they're busy with other projects. So the utility billing staff now is able to help cover in those situations. And at times when we need some extra support in utility billing, the administrative assistant can provide some of that. We tend to have our meetings start very early at 7 a.m. in the morning, so it's slow time, and it's usually not much of an imposition on the administrative assistant when we do that. Another thing that we changed was the town has its own utility bills. We pay for water, we pay for sewer. And what was happening was a bill was being generated to the town, going to accounts payable. Accounts payable was generating a paper check, which then was given to utility billing for deposit. And so we've changed that to where it's more of an internal process, but you don't want to have all that extra processing time with all of that. So it's really just an internal entry that we do. So, and those were the ones that I was going to highlight here. Anytime you see something that you're like, hey, I want to hear more about this, just let me know. Some of the other projects that we've worked on, we have listed here. Again, on the left are some of those projects, and on the right is a list of the fiscal sustainability goals and action items that are related. Fiscal year 24 year-end audit prep. So we had our auditors out last week. They will be working on getting that wrapped up, but that is a very big project at year-end with all the various things that we do. We'll be moving into financial status, but throughout the year, and this is very, very common of how governments handle their accounting, is it's cash basis throughout the year, and then you do the accruals at the end of the year. And so it ends up being a fair amount of work to do all of that. Also on here, change of contact info. So it seems like it's a never ending process of like, oh, now there's something else where it still has the previous finance director on there. Need to change that and change to have my name on there, and even finding things where previous town manager was on there and we needed to change it to Grady. So it's been a big process going through just trying to do that small thing. So wanted to review the performance measures. Back in July, council approved performance measures for the departments. And so these were the ones for finance. The first one is closing the general ledger within 10 business days. We closed the month of July and August within 10 business days, and September was actually within 6 business days. A lot of the audit prep work during August and September, which was closing July and August, was very heavy during that time. So it was very much a pointed of like, okay, we're going to meet this 10 business day deadline on top of everything else that was going on. The next two for the GFOA awards for the ACFR and the budget, those are annual measures. Those are not monthly or quarterly measures really. Percentage of AP invoices paid within 30 days. So we have 100% across the board there. Percentage of utility accounts that were over 60 days past due. So 5-6% is where we're ranging, which is actually very low. So it's
That's low? That's surprising. That would be low.
yes, that would be a low rate.
For, based on what? Based on your experience, other towns?
Yes, yes. You see a lot of them at like 15-20%.
I mean, what percent of what are the write-offs then? Do we have write-offs?
The write-offs have been very minimal. I actually haven't had to experience a write-off since I've been here, so we have not done that. And then the last measure there was a comparison of what the investment return was compared to the 3-year treasury. And as you can see in each one of those months, the investment return has been higher than what the 3-year treasury rates are. So for the most recent one for September, the return was 4.64% and the 3-year treasury was 3.58%.
Do we charge a penalty for being overdue?
Yes, we do. We charge late fees.
And we collect them? People pay them? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, if they get,
Yeah.
if they get to the point to where they're disconnected, they have to pay the full amount based off of town code. They have to pay the full amount of what is owed in order to have their water turned back on. Okay, so moving into some financial status. So here for the first quarter revenue summary. So as I have here, this is cash basis. All of these numbers are unaudited. When you look at what the budget is for revenues at 38 million, first quarter revenues, 6.7 million, that's 18% of budget. This is cash basis. And so I will use TPT as the example of one of the big areas on how this works. So right now we're in the month of October. The businesses will pay by the deadline, hopefully, of November 20th for October. And then as ADOR, Arizona Department of Revenue, processes those returns, we get distributions weekly. And so it can take until the middle of November, or not November, middle of December before we actually get all of our October revenue. So there's quite that timeline in how all of this happens. Here we have the first quarter TPT revenues, and the TPT revenue budgeted was 13 million. First quarter, 1.9 million, that's 15%. I do have a breakdown here for you, general fund. So everything except for construction and bed tax is in the first line, budgeted at 7.5 million. But bed tax was not budgeted separately, but we are tracking that now separately. 854,000 or 11%. Construction is at 23% for the first quarter. The portions recorded in Spur Cross and wastewater at 17%. I do have the note here that residential rental tax will end December 31st. Assuming council has had some conversations about that in the past, that tax is going away. I did want to review the allocations of TPT money. So the construction TPT amount is a total of 5%. 4% is unrestricted. And then there were the 2 half-cents that were dedicated at Spur Cross and wastewater. We'll go through those, each a 1/2 cent. The bed tax, 4%. And that was actually put in place before the 2 half-cents were adopted, and the 2 half-cents were not added to bed tax. So there's no allocation there. And then all other is total of 3%, 2% unrestricted, and the 2 half%. So we did go through and do a revision on how these numbers were recorded, because it was basically the opposite in how it was being handled with construction and bed tax. The construction was going 100% into unrestricted, and bed tax was going partially into unrestricted and then taking 2 half-cents and putting it in Spur Cross and wastewater. But that's not how, when I went back through and reviewed all the ordinances, that's not how that was actually approved. So the 4% for bed tax was approved back in 1993. And the initial 2 half-cent dedications happened in 97 and 99. So this was not increased. Bed tax was not increased at that point in time. The dedications have been changed over the years. So originally, the one was dedicated in 97 and then revised in 2007. The second one was originally dedicated in 99 and then revised multiple times in 2007, 2014, and 2017. And I have a list here on those dedications. So what's currently in there, so the 2007-05 ordinance said that it's dedicated to and exclusively used for, and it lists debt service for wastewater or sewer and water, and funding of pledges. And 2 and 3 say they're subject to the pledges in number 1. And there's a replenishment of a $400,000 sewer reserve, which has never been established. And in order to establish that, because we're needing to have subsidies to the wastewater from general fund to even stay flush would take additional subsidy from the general fund in order to fund that 400,000. The repayment of debt owed to the general fund due to the sewer system expenditures, there is no debt recorded in the financial statements at this point in time of sewer owing general fund money back. And then the fourth item there, so it says after items 1 through 3, then it can be used towards historic town core and commercial areas. Well, with the subsidies going to the utilities, we're not there, not even remotely. The ordinance for 2017-02, so that one says dedicated to and used for the items that are listed there, funding of pledges for repayment of debt, operation and maintenance of Spur Cross, protection, restoration of historical archaeological sites in Spur Cross. After items 1 through 3, then 100,000 goes to trails. And then after that, any remaining balance is split 50-50 to the water infrastructure fund and to the general fund. There's some of the things that I would like to address in the way some of this is worded in the language of the ordinances, because the funding of the pledges leads it to sound like as if we're setting up a reserve for these pledges, and we're not doing that. That's not happening. And I don't believe that was the intent of the language. I think the language just needs to be altered a little bit to match that. This was something that we were thinking during the council retreat, if council had thoughts on changing some of this, because I think maybe council does have some ideas that we could potentially do that. First quarter on the expenditure summary. So total of the budget for fiscal year 25, 57.4 million. First quarter expenditures, 7.7. So we're at 13% of the budget so far. We do have at the bottom part there showing the allocation of how much is operating and how much is capital. So from the operating side, we're at 16% of budget, which would make sense as far as routine payments of payroll and things like that that happen regularly, whereas capital can fluctuate from month to month how much gets spent. If you're only in design phase, you don't spend as much when you're in the midst of heavy construction. Looking at from a fund balance perspective, so the July 1 fund balance number, so those are preliminary. The auditors are still wrapping up some of the work that they're working on. The July 1 preliminary fund balance number is 37.7 million, revenues 6.7 million, expenditures 7.7 million, with a first quarter ending fund balance of 36.7 million. So in this, what we're looking at with the enterprise funds is budgetary basis fund balance. When you look at the financial statements with all the accruals and business type entries that get recorded for enterprise, you're going to have capital assets in your net position and all of those things. So from a budgetary perspective, this is what the fund balances are. Some of the things that I want to point out as far as how these entries get recorded. So typically we're not recording fund transfers until the year end. So any of the use of water infrastructure money may not have been transferred at this point in time. We did use all of the ARPA money in the fiscal year 24. So there's no ARPA money left in these numbers. And in this first quarter, we have drawn down the forgivable portion of the WIFA loan for the Phoenix Interconnect project. Reimbursement is pending, but we do have those costs in here. Council just approved at the last meeting the updates to the investment policy. One of the things that we did not change that was in the policy, there was a requirement to report to council quarterly on the investment report. And so for September, this here is a list of what the investments are. The policy only allowed depository accounts and LGIP, the state treasurer's pool, local government investment pool. And so 35.4 million is the amount that was held in those. The also here we have the performance measurement, the portfolio rate of return For September, 4.64, the benchmark with the 3-year treasury at 3.58. Part of looking at the investments is also what the change has been. So for the month of September, the net contribution increasing the checking accounts was about 462,000. We did close the money market account that was not allowed under the policy and had a significantly lower rate than what we get through LGIP. Closed that out of the 755. The earnings on LGIP for the month was 134,000 and a small amount on the money market. So for a small net transaction amount of 159,000 reduction. For the quarter, for first quarter activity, so the LGIP, we did do a drawdown that was actually back in July, 4 million. The closure of the money market account, and then the net withdrawal out of the checking accounts of 1.5 million. The earnings for the quarter, so LGIP so far for the year, 419, and then about 2,500 out of the money market, and then a small amount on the account analysis fees and wire fees that are incurred. So the net transactions for the first quarter was a reduction of about 5.9 million. I do have a couple of notes there for you. So your July 1 debt payments were 4.5 million. And the capital costs during the first quarter, 1.6 million. So those are things that don't happen evenly throughout the year. So looking forward into the future, some of the in process and future projects. So there's lists of projects on the left-hand side, and then on the right-hand side, numerous items out of the strategic plan apply here. I mentioned earlier that we had some Cassell training, and so there are a lot of features that we identified that would be very beneficial to utilize. My experience with Cassell in the past was in my consultant role in my previous life, where I was helping do year-end prep and things like that, where I was helping with some journal entries and running reports, the in-depth of all of what we learned. And I was actually quite surprised at how much Cassell is capable of. So my opinion of Cassell has risen. And so we definitely want to utilize some of the features that would help us make us more efficient. We had OpenGov representatives here last week, I think it was. And so they talked to us about some of the things that have changed already in the past year with their system, and some things that we're not utilizing that could help make us more efficient. Also on the list, so next week we have really kind of kicking off internally our budget process for fiscal year 26, starting to have some discussions of planning for the next cycle. And we are going to be talking about budget development processes, budget adoption processes, and things that we can do to help improve in that area as well.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
Do you ever envision us going to a 2-year budget?
We could potentially do that, but the places that do a 2-year budget still go through in that second year. They're revising the numbers based off of additional information. So I don't know how much it really saves time-wise.
Vice Mayor, we actually toyed with that when I was in my previous employer. And the state makes it very difficult for that. There's a lot of different technical reasons why in Arizona you wouldn't want to go in that route. And some of it has to do with the legislature and things that they might do to you each year. And but I was actually working for the city of Burbank when we went in that route several years ago. I'm kind of embarrassed to tell you how long ago that was, but it was a very useful budgeting system.
CAP has a 2-year budget. That's why I asked.
It is something that helps you do better planning. But in every case, as the finance director indicated, the second year, there's like an amended budget from what had been adopted as part of the 2-year budget typically, because things didn't quite square up as anticipated. But it does take a lot of rethinking, but it's in a positive way. And I would love to be able to look into that further here. We did do it, like I said, in a previous town, and it didn't make sense for us because of some of the externalities that are beyond our control. So I know like CAP is a quasi governmental entity, and so they probably have a little bit more flexibility than a political subdivision like a city or a town.
So these were things that basically when I was going through some of my notes and stuff on projects for future, even the ones that projects have been completed, I'm sure I've forgotten things to include on the list. And this is part of what I was saying of the capacity of staff to be able to take on. So you're saying, so some of these other things would have to be delayed and deferred if staff was to try and take on some of the other things. So with that, that's basically what I had. So if there's any questions, anything you want me to go back to on any of the slides.
Questions or comments?
I have so many questions, but they'll wait till Wednesday afternoon when I come to the town office.
It's obvious that you're really making a lot of progress and finding a lot of opportunities out there. I mean, that's quite a list, the ones you've completed and the ones that are proposed. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next on here is the presentation of updates to the town website. Need it. It'll be a while, I guess, huh?
Got locked down. I'll try to make this fast. And go back down. All right, so town council has actually asked for funding, or has given us funding and asked for updates to our website for the last couple of years. And so staff actually began working on updating the town website in fall of 2022. So we worked on the back end, cleaning up website content, removing all the outdated documents and making sure everything was consistent across the board. We actually, Civic Plus is our website provider. They specialize in government websites. And we did work with a consultant with them that specialized in the website content and gave us feedback on what we had and what we should change. We did add a module, the CreekBot, which is a chat bot, and that has helped us on the back end. We can see what people are searching for. It doesn't say who's searching, but we can see what they're entering into the search. And then we can use that as far as how we want to update the website and what we want to focus on. And it also is trainable. So if people are searching, for example, budget, the minute that when they type in budget, it takes them to that page instead of them having to search on the website. The interior pages are going to be consistent with our homepage. I'll be showing you screenshots of our homepage. In appearance, they're going to be consistent in both appearance and the functions throughout. And then one of the other big features we actually have already started. We are showcasing your photos on our town council page. So people, when they go to town council, they can see who our council members and mayor and vice mayor are. We will also include your bios, and we are going to do the same or similar with our directors. We're going to put our pictures up on the pages. The website is actually going to launch on Friday. So this is a work in progress. So we've got some major changes, but we will continue making updates as we go. So the homepage at the very top, this is going to be our new banner. We updated and added to our color palette. This banner actually will be rotating multiple pictures, and we'll also be able, right there where it says welcome to Cave Creek, we can add our verbiage. So, and we can make this clickable. So for example, the rodeo, if we have other events, big things going on, we can showcase pictures and make it a direct link to those pages. Right below that will be these informational buttons. We kept with the icons because everyone liked them, but we did modify them, update them to be consistent throughout. And then below that, we have some additional informational buttons that are easily changeable. So different topics that are going to be important to residents, to the town, we can change this and make them direct links. The town spotlight is where our current news announcements are. And so that will get updated as, just like we do currently. And then at the very bottom is our upcoming events and our calendar. So it will continue to be populated with various events, town and throughout, town sponsored and the other events throughout town. And then it's a little bit hard to see, but this is the screenshot. We will be updating this on the new site, but this is actually up on our current site. And after everyone gets sworn in on December 2nd, we will update photos and bios as well. All right, any questions?
Is that when the new group photo will be taken as well?
And we'll work on a new group photo.
No, very nice.
Okay.
Much needed.
All right, then I have nothing else to add. So I do look forward, so we will go up, go live, I should say, Friday morning. So
Great.
I look forward to it.
Very good.
Thank you, Teresa. Okay, that completes our business tonight. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Adjourn.